Welcome on back to another episode of the Goonery. We're going to be talking all things NFL offseason here today. Obviously, a big emphasis on our Bears. Brandon, we're going to get into what we would like to see happen this offseason. Obviously, neither of us are well-versed enough, let's say, or I don't want to say smart enough, but our lack of our football general manager expertise has not gone beyond Madden. So right here, we're going to be talking scenarios we would like to see play out for the Bears this offseason, whether it's the draft, trades, re-signing, free agent moves, whatever. I have some guys written down here, Brandon, but I want to, before we get into additions, right? I want to get into some extensions on from the Bears front office. I think number one priority right now for an extension should be Cole Kmet. I don't know about you, but we really saw him and Justin Fields kind of build that rapport that we all knew could evolve into it. And Kmet, a damn good year. I mean, it was not anything crazy flashy. I think he had 8 or so touchdowns, if I remember off the top of my head, but he finally took those strides that you saw. Okay, I could see why he was a second rounder. And I think right now, if I had to guess, just based on the little bit I've looked around market value, he's probably going to be about a $12 million a year guy. And why take someone away? Why not lock him up long term? Him and Fields obviously have a connection, and more so than anyone else on this offense, if we're being completely honest. And I'm not saying Cole Kmet's an all-world tight end. I'm not saying that Justin Fields is going to be an all-world quarterback, but if you look at the formula of teams that have been winning year after year here in the NFL, whether teams matching up in the Super Bowl, whatever, who's winning Super Bowls, look at it. Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Rob Gronkowski, Tom Brady, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts. You could go on and on with these great tight ends with these young, great quarterbacks. There's something there, in my opinion, to that.
I'm with you on extending Cole Kmet, and I think one of the things that was interesting was, regardless of the weapons or lack thereof for the Bears, Cole Kmet was one of the most consistent targets. Now, with that being said, I would still like to see him be more consistent in his production, and that I think because I've been hard on Cole Kmet ever since he came out, because I thought the pick at that particular time when he did, I was not crazy about it, but I figured that was an absolute need for the Bears to get a tight end. Now, you mentioned that one of the formulas for the winning teams is a good tight end, a great tight end, as a matter of fact. And I do think with how much the Bears like to get him involved, he can evolve to being a guy that's going to be one of the top targets on this football team, which is going to be great, because at the end of the day, we don't know what this receiving core is going to look like when week one comes around. So having that guy to open up the offense completely would be extremely helpful. And truth be told, I do think that there will be room for another tight end through the draft for the Bears, but I will say that Cole Kmet is definitely at the head of that room when you talk about weapons, and that is over Darnell Mooney and over Chase Claypool. And we'll see who they bring in, but right now he's that number one guy. But still, at the same time, I would still like to see the consistency out of him, so he could be an all the way reliable target that you need a big third down, big fourth down. He's that guy.
So, you mentioned adding tight ends through the draft this year. There's a few interesting options, I think. I know we're skipping around here a little bit, but on the topic of tight end, there are some interesting options this year that are free agents. The one that everyone is pointing to is Mike Gesicki. I don't think he would necessarily want to come in here and play the role of number 2 tight end.
Right.
I would love if they could do that. I think it would be a great fit. I think an interesting option could be what's his name? Foster Moreau.
Yeah.
From the Raiders. I think he is a very good number 2. I don't know if the Raiders are necessarily going to let him walk just because of the health issues that we've seen from Waller year in and year out. It's an interesting established option that you could bring in for your number 2. And we really haven't seen okay, aside from this year, success at the tight end position for the Bears since you had the combination of Zach Miller and Martellus Bennett.
Yeah.
And there's something to being able to run 2 tight end sets. There really is. And it it's just the 2 tight end sets. It ends up being a matchup nightmare. It opens up the passing game for your running back, which we'll get into that. Let's just jump into that now. David Montgomery, do you see him as a Chicago Bear moving into next year?
I do not, and that hurts me because I'm a big David Montgomery fan, but I think with how the new offense looked, the writing was on the wall. It was so clear as day that he's just not a fit for the particular offense. You saw that even Khalil Herbert, or even to a somewhat lesser extent, Darrington Evans was more of a fit in that offense. So unfortunately, yeah, David Montgomery was going to be looking for a new team.
So do you see the Bears opting for the internal option with Khalil Herbert? But obviously, there's names everyone's throwing around, right? I mean, they have all the money in the world. 2 big names are Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley are being thrown around right now. I think Jacobs would be the cheaper option. He's coming off winning the rushing crown, but I would still prefer Saquon. He seems to be healthy. Doesn't seem like the Giants want to pay him because it looks like they want to pay Daniel Jones $45 million for some reason. And you have the money, spend it. What is $16 million for 2 or 3 years going to do for Saquon Barkley? I mean, like $21 million in cap?
Yeah.
You have the money to play with. It makes no sense why you wouldn't get one of the elite running backs to come in and help Justin Fields. Could you imagine the read option with those 2?
It would be deadly. I mean, and here's the thing. I do think that every running back on the market is buyers beware. Mm-hmm. And that it is included with one of the top 5 running backs in football with Saquon Barkley. Yeah. And I'm on the ropes about this. I can't even lie, because I think for me personally, Tony Pollard would have been my number 1 option, because I just thought that
I agree.
I just think that in no world that the Giants were going to be silly enough to not pay their best offensive player. But Daniel Jones comes into the equation too, so now everything gets tricky. But my mindset is this: if you have an option to get one of the premier running backs in the league, one of the premier offensive players in football, listen, everybody needs a home run threat. Everybody needs a guy that everybody fears. And if you're going to sit here and tell me that offense wouldn't look infinitely better with Saquon Barkley and Justin Fields in the backfield, I'm taking that. And the contract may backfire on the Bears going down the line. But then again, that's where buyers beware comes in, because you don't know how many years, you don't know how much money you're going to give them. But if you can work out something where you do not have to keep Barkley at a very, very high clip, which I low-key think is impossible, you do it. You do it.
Yeah.
And you don't look back. Because, I mean, listen, Josh Jacobs is a good option. Tony Pollard, if he ends up not getting tagged, good option. Yeah. You take that. But before you ask me this question, a cheaper option would have came into play. I would need to look at the options again. But I look at the guys that are going to be pretty low in the draft in terms of running backs. Tajay Spears, Chase Brown, man.
Yeah.
Those 3 guys. If you could get one of those guys, I mean, you're good when you have Khalil Herbert being the lead back and one of those guys backing him up. Mm-hmm. But again, if you have the opportunity to get a home run hitter, you get him.
Yeah, and I was honestly surprised when I was reading into this the last few days. To see Saquon Barkley's only 26. It feels like he has been in the league a lot longer than he has.
Yeah.
And granted, he came in 2018, but I mean, the talent is all world. He was the 2nd overall pick. You don't see that in modern football. You don't see that for running backs. That's my number 1. I know it's not the biggest position in need. That is the number 1 person I would like to see added to the Chicago Bears this offseason, outside of the draft. Let me say outside of the draft.
Okay. I understand that.
But obviously the main priority this offseason for the Bears and for Justin Fields' development, he needs more help on the offensive line. He
Absolutely.
needs more help on the offensive line. And there's a name that I wouldn't necessarily say he's flying under the radar a little bit, but if the Bears are confident in Braxton Jones at left tackle moving forward, there's a guy at right tackle, Juwan Taylor, excuse me,
Juwan Taylor, yes.
from Jacksonville, 25 years old. He has started and all 66 games he's been able to appear in his career. He has started every single one of them. Durability tends to be the biggest issue with the Bears offensive line the last few years.
Mhm.
That's the definition of durable. He only gave up 5 sacks this last year. And he's 25. A right side of the offensive line with him and Tevin Jenkins.
Hey man,
There's a lot to be excited about with the potential of someone like that.
you know, I'm torn because I'm actually torn between two guys that low-key aren't fit for the Bears. A run heavy offense like the Bears, Juwan Taylor actually doesn't fit, but you get the production of a 25-year-old that is constantly available. You take that. And the guy that I'm torn between is him and Mike McGlinchey. And I think Mike McGlinchey I think that's absolutely the guy they're going to pay. They're like, that's going to be the guy. But I think this is a good thing. Because at the end of the day, the Bears need an option at right tackle. Riley Reef is not going to be sticking around unless it's in a backup role. I mean, cool. You have him in a backup role, that's totally fine. But Mike McGlinchey and Juwan Taylor has to be the two options. And it's unfortunate because Orlando Brown's going to be tagged. And
that's why it's not even Bears fans need to stop. He is not leaving Kansas City.
He's not.
One, because of the franchise tag. Two, I don't care. You don't want to leave after winning another Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's all that comes down to. He's not leaving. Anyone who voluntarily leaves a Patrick Mahomes-led team, you're a fool. I mean, you're a fool.
Yeah.
You are bulletproof.
And you know something? While he would be great, I will say this as well. There was a guy on the other side of the Super Bowl who on the offensive line has a free agent, Jordan Mailata, at right guard for the Chicago Bears. Oh, not a right guard, left guard, excuse me. At left guard, it's like, listen, the center position is going to get improved through the draft. I'm not sure if that's going to come in the form of a free agent, whether it be Ethan Polk. I don't know how to say his name. I think he plays for the Browns. It's very hard for me to pronounce that. I don't know if it's going to be him. I don't know if it's going to be John Michael Schmitz. At the end of the day, they're going to find their center. And if you're telling me that the opening week lineup is going to consist of Braxton Jones, free agent left guard, free agent or draft center, Jordan Mailata, not Jordan Mailata, left guard, excuse me. Tevin Jenkins at right guard, Juwan Taylor or Michael McGlinchey at right tackle. I don't think it gets better than that. But it's interesting too, because while we talk about who can start at right tackle in terms of veterans, it could very well get to a position where the Bears will trade down to a point where they could take a right tackle. And I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. It's not my first option, but it's also an option that is available that can be worth their while too.
Yeah, and an option that I've seen, obviously, with the news that came out today, Wednesday, with Taylor Lewan getting released by the Titans. I don't want him as a Bear. I've seen people clamoring for him to be a Bear. He's about to be year 10 in the league. He's been so banged up the last 3 years. It would just be a Riley Reef, Michael Schofield type of thing all over again. And don't get me wrong, Taylor Lewan, much better player, much better career than those two. But he's washed. Like, Bears fans need to get that out of their head. And I think from everything I've seen, he'll probably retire. So that's another one.
Yeah.
It's Bears fans need to just get that thought out of their head. But there's a lot of intriguing options out there. And, you bring up trading back in the draft and potentially getting a right tackle. So just on the topic of the draft, something I've seen being thrown around is the Bears will trade the first pick back to the fourth for the Colts, and then they'll trade the fourth to the ninth for the Panthers. Do you think it's realistic that that could be a path they choose?
I'm going to be honest. It's really all dependent on who's on the board at 4.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. At 4, either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson will be on the board.
Yep.
Can you rationalize trading back, not getting one of them? You trade back to 9, where it's either Paris Johnson, it's either Peter Skoronski, Tyree Wilson, Miles Murphy. Listen, all four are really, really good players. They're not Will Anderson or Jalen Carter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be great to get, more picks. But the best trade down scenario that the Bears can have, and this could be completely out of left field. You trade with the Texans, and the Colts will panic and trade up for the number 2. It's crazy.
It is, but it's not.
It's not crazy only because at the end of the day, those are the 2 teams that want the quarterback. Those are the 2 teams who want their franchise quarterback. So to me, that's the best case scenario because, like I said, at 4, Jalen Carter or Will Anderson is going to be on the board. Mm-hmm. Arizona's going to get one of them at number. Yep. So that's out of the question. But getting those picks and racking up on those where you could continue to maneuver around the draft in the 2nd, 3rd round and beyond, that's the perfect scenario to me. Do I think it will happen? No. Is there a chance? Maybe. But to me, that's the best scenario.
And that's valid. I'm concerned that the way the Bears handle this draft is going to make Justin Fields unhappy, if that makes sense. Because I don't know if you saw, he did some interviews last week, and he's made it very public and very clear he wants to play with JSN in the NFL. He wants the Chicago Bears to draft JSN. And that's not to say that it's impossible, but one, I don't want the Bears to reach for him. I think he'll be a good pro, but you don't need to reach for a guy like that in a class that is so deep at receiver. You don't need to do that. And let's just say they end up with 2 first-round picks this year, right? Which more likely than not, let me rephrase that. It's possible they end up with more than 1 first-round pick this year. Like we've been discussing, if they were able to swing a 2nd-round pick or a 2nd first-round pick, let's say in the 12 to 16 range, go ahead, take him. That's fine. But you cannot reach and take him in the top 10. You simply can't with all of the talent that can fill so many more bigger holes for this team right now.
You can't justify it. At the end of the day, too, I don't think he's going to be unhappy per se, because I think he's very well aware that the whole team needs to be revamped, like the entire team. So, if they want to get a generational pass rusher, a generational game disruptor, and Jalen Carter and Will Anderson, respectively, I think he'll understand. But like you said, this draft is so rich with talent. You're going to have 2 second-round picks. And I understand that there's a lot of holes on this team that need to get filled and whatnot. But you get 2 second-round picks, there's a lot of guys out there that's going to be there for the taking. And the thing is, too, we have to remember something. I understand he sat out because it was all about his draft stock and whatnot. We got to be careful because Smith and Jigma didn't play most of last season. So that's a risk. And I know he wants to play with his college team. I completely understand. Their connection was incredible. But business has to go over pleasure at this moment.
Yep.
There's too many guys that's out there that's going to be contributing to teams. And I'm sure this Jackson Smith is not the only guy that wants to play with Justin Fields. We said, you see, Jaden Reed wants to play with Justin Fields. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of guys that's going to be willing to play with them. So you are in a good position to get good talent. It's just a matter of which one.
Yep.
Who is it going to be?
So I just want to touch on a point that you made. Guys want to play with Justin Fields. Isn't that an awesome change of pace as a Bears fan that you have people very publicly saying that they want to play with our quarterback?
It's almost as if the whole media has been ignoring this the entire postseason, offseason, because I kid you not, all I've heard is people just giving complete smoke to this Justin Fields trade rumor. And it's funny because I think it was Louis Ring that was making this point earlier. It's like, how in the world, like, tell me if this makes sense. How it was Matt Nagy's fault, it's Lou Getsy's fault, but now we want to trade Justin Fields. This is coming from the fan base, by the way. This is coming from the fan base. Now, if they don't go, if they don't win 3 games this year, this isn't a conversation. But I think when people see the record of 3-14, Justin Fields 5-20 in his starting career so far, they're gonna look to him. But this is where people need to do their homework. You need to watch the games, and you need to see that he's running for his life. He has absolutely no choice but to throw. He lost his top wide receiver in the middle of the season. Chase Claypool just wasn't a factor, and then Equanimeous St. Brown is your number 1 target. How in God's name can anybody
expect success?
Expect success and expect a full evaluation of him. You cannot tell me that Bryce Young is going to be a better quarterback when he first of all, he's very miniature, and
my biggest gripe with the people who bring up that the Bears should trade Fields and start with Bryce Young, you are just back to square one.
Exactly. That's what my point since day one.
I don't understand why you would want to just reset the clock when you already have a young, extremely talented, dynamic quarterback who the team obviously likes playing for. Like it's apparent that the fan base loves him, his teammates love him, this coaching staff loves him, and it seems like the front office loves him. I don't understand the media narrative that people think it would be a better option to go from a physical freak in Justin Fields who's 6'3", 230, runs a 4.3, throws a great deep ball. I mean, it's just like to Bryce Young, who might be 5'9". Like, let's be honest, he's listed at 5'10", 5'11", whatever he is.
Mina Kimes the same height as him.
I'm 5'10", and I'm probably taller than Bryce Young in real life.
I want to let people in on something too. With all this cap space that the Bears have, don't you think they're going to try to contend?
Yeah,
they're going to try to contend this year. Also, I don't know if people have been watching football over the past 5-6 years. Name me one quarterback that has taken a leap in his rookie season. You are going to waste a roster that you are going to revamp on a rookie. Think about that. Trevor Lawrence was not good his rookie year. Zach Wilson was very average his rookie year. Justin Fields didn't have good coaching his rookie year. Point being, you cannot expect a rookie to walk into a situation and him to be the best quarterback of the class. You have no idea how that's going to work out. And to think that he can walk into that situation, no one can do that. Sorry, no one can do that. It's not possible. We see Justin Fields take a leap, and we're gonna trade him off, even though we expect to be a good quarterback. You know something? That's the stuff that gets people fired. They think they're smarter than everybody in the room, and they just want to make that splash move because we want people to talk about us. No,
that's exactly what that would be too. That's exactly what that would be.
People have been saying this all week, and I have to agree. If Bryce Young is good, cool.
Hey,
if Justin Fields gets traded and he's a superstar somewhere, guess what? Ryan Poles would not, they would blacklist him from any
never
front
would have
office.
a job again.
Never, because you're tied to the hip with that. And at the least, if Justin Fields fails, guess what? There's a better draft class next season, and you can fall back on that. It's. I wouldn't say it's a win-win because it is a loss. Because me and you are big fans of Justin Fields. We want him to succeed, but it is a win-win if he does not. If he does not perform, and guess what?
Quarterback class
right there sitting there, Caleb Williams, Drake May, whichever one you want.
Yeah, and I know, God, I would probably need to be put on some type of list if we had another rookie quarterback out of North Carolina in the first round. But Drake May's different. I mean, I don't foresee that being a situation where we have to worry about it. But yeah, man. So we talked about, the type of wide receivers that want to play with Fields, right? It's not a particularly strong wide receiver class free agent wise. That's not to say, though, there are options that I think could come in and help this team, right? I mean, Claypool and Mooney, both we've seen, they're funny enough, both better on the outside. You wouldn't think that with Mooney, but Mooney is better when he's lined up on the outside. There's a few guys that I think would be relatively cheap this year in free agency, come in, man the slot, and just be that security blanket for Fields in addition to Cole Kmet. There's two guys I have in mind. One, Jarvis Landry.
Really?
I mean, he's an unrestricted free agent out of New Orleans. They don't know what's going on at quarterback down there. I mean, he does not get enough credit for how good he's been the last 7-8 years or so. He's not going to cost a lot of money. No. I mean, realistically, he won't. He will not cost a lot of money, and he'll come in and give you 50 catches. He'll give you 50 catches like with his eyes closed. But there's another name who would be even cheaper who I would love to see come in, probably more than Jarvis Landry. That's Jamison Crowder.
I forgot about him.
Jamison Crowder is a guy I have always been a fan of. I mean,
same here.
Can stretch the field when he needs to. He'll take that big hit across the middle, and if he stays healthy, he's a damn good wide receiver, man. And that's the thing with him. Health. Just like, I mean, we always circle back to it with Bears players. It's health. It just feels that way with all Chicago sports. That's a whole different can of worms, but I want to see N'Keal Harry. I want to see him back. He's not a slot guy, but you bring him back in another 1 or 2 year deal. I know he didn't play much. He didn't do shit, but you saw the flashes when he was on the field.
Right.
So your eyes kind of lit up there when I said there's a guy in the slot, and it doesn't seem like it was either of the guys I had mentioned. So who's on your mind?
So I would say that Jacoby Myers is your prototypical slot guy, but listen, I think to me he's the best option best option in free agency. I know that people have him or Alan Lazard. I think Jacoby Myers is better than Alan Lazard. I think in an offense like New England, Jacoby Myers was never going to be like a top flight receiver. I think he can be better in a better situation where they have a competent offense. New England didn't have that for the past 2 years. There was a guy that was extremely underrated this year, and I always wondered why he never took off in the league, because I saw him in college do some really, really horrible things to my beloved Michigan Wolverines. That name is Paris Campbell. He had a very, very quiet good year, and he was one of the favorite targets for Sam Ehlinger when he was the starting quarterback. And even when, Alec Pierce was being shut down, or Michael Pittman Jr. was not contributing enough, Paris Campbell was that guy. And I think that a guy like him, he's very sneaky fast. You can do a lot with Paris Campbell.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the elements that's missing from the Bears. A guy that can really stretch the field, but also you can put in gadget plays too. I know a guy that is yes, a guy that could do that is McCole Hardman. I'm a little concerned about him because his pelvis injury. I don't know how much is going to affect him, but Paris Campbell is number 2 on my list. If they want to go out and get 2 wide receivers, sure. Because I don't think Paris Campbell's going to cost that much, but I think Jacoby Myers should be the number 1 target for them.
He's what? Jacoby Myers is what, 26 or 27, something like that?
I think so.
I
think he's younger than that, but I'm not sure.
He's a very good wide receiver, man. Like I would love to see him come into Chicago. I just don't necessarily know if he's a realistic option. He should be a realistic option, but I just don't see him being the type of player that the Bears necessarily target. And that's not to say they won't. I hope they do. But whatever happens with him, I do not think he will be in New England next year.
Absolutely not. No. But I want to bring this up. There's a lot of rumors been flying around about this particular guy. What do you think about Mike Thomas if he gets released?
You know what? Bring me Slant Boy. Bring me.
Why not? Why not? Why not?
He hasn't been able to stay on the field. He's not going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
He's going to be dirt cheap. And what was it? 3 years ago, he led the league in yards and receptions. I mean, if he stays healthy, he's a damn good wide receiver. And I mean, quite the fall from grace, but with the position the Bears are in, that's the type of guy you take a chance on.
Hey, you know something? I don't. Unfortunately, I think because of the injury history, I think they will avoid him. They will completely avoid him, and that's going to suck. But if he's out there for dirt cheap, I think why not? I mean, why not?
Oh, I agree.
But I do think the Bears should trade for a wide receiver, though. And here's my reasoning.
Okay.
I understand that draft capital is at a premium for the Bears, but considering where they are roster-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And you are going to be afraid to give up whomever in the draft to get a veteran like DeAndre Hopkins or Mike Evans. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, though. When you think about what the Bears have at the moment, that is the most deadliest weapon in free agency, the most deadliest weapon in the offseason, that's the number 1 pick. The number 1 pick is going to be the biggest bargain for the Bears this offseason, which we don't know what is going to be the case in terms of draft capital they get back or how much they will trade back. We don't know that. But what I do know is this. You trade a 3rd rounder, you trade a 5th rounder for DeAndre Hopkins, guess what? You're most likely to get it back. I know stacking that is something that Bears fans will probably salivate over, but if you can trade picks but ultimately get them back because of trading back, whether it be in the 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, you will take that because you got your number 1 receiver that the Bears really need, if we're really being honest.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't necessarily. I mean, I would love Hopkins. I don't care about giving up draft capital 5th, 6th round. I mean, it doesn't. It's if you can find a diamond in the rough. It's very rare you will find someone to match DeAndre Hopkins' production for a few years.
Absolutely.
A more realistic option that I think, because I've mentioned like the need for a slot guy. A more realistic option, I think, is a guy like Tyler Boyd. So
I'm very bullish on him.
So the only reason I say that is because I find it very hard to believe the Cincinnati Bengals will not do whatever it takes to keep Jamar Chase and T. Higgins together, right? I find that very hard to believe. And it would be a bit of a salary dump for Boyd to come to the Bears. But by getting rid of Boyd, Bengals will have enough to pay Higgins. They'll have enough room in the budget, and the Bears have enough money that it's fuck you money right now. They can do what they want. I don't love Boyd, but he's pretty damn consistent, man. He's one of the better slot guys, and it's not a move that'll jump off the page, but it would be an impactful move. And I hate that I'm already reeling like this because the offseason's just beginning. And I went from a few weeks ago talking about how I would love to see a guy like Mike Evans potentially traded here, a guy like Hopkins, maybe T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Down to Tyler Boyd. and I hate that I'm already at this point, but I'm just like trying to be realistic, I think, because every time that there's a trade in sports that you think makes too much sense to not happen, I feel like it never happens. Let's
Yeah,
be real here.
yeah.
It feels like what should happen doesn't. Be beneficial for both sides for us to get DeAndre Hopkins, but I don't know, man. I don't know.
What I do know is this. You could take a risk on those guys because at the end of the day, here's how I see it. We don't know how long these guys are going to last in terms of Mike Evans and DeAndre Hopkins.
No.
And I think one of the good things is that the wide receiver class is so damn rich that even if you draft a guy that is very highly regarded, maybe second round, third round, I think the best thing about it is that whichever one you get, they're going to be they're going to have the chance to develop under those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of how the production goes, you know that the NFL game will be ready for them when they are ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. And if they are really serious about contending, I think you have to make a splash. And I think they know that. I think they're
I do agree
very
with
well aware of it. And that's why if you see guys that are cap casualties like a Keenan Allen or a
yeah.
Adam Thielen to a lesser extent, like Michael Thomas, there's going to be guys out there. At the end of the day, those guys are risk, but if you are really in a win now situation, you have to consider those guys.
Yeah, man.
And by the way, Keenan Allen in the Bears uniform, I'm going to be first in line to buy that damn jersey.
Oh man, wouldn't that be something? And that just before we move on here, I mean, is there a franchise in the NFL that's more fucked for the future moving forward while still having as much promise as they do as the Chargers? Because Justin Herbert is just the last ounce of hope they have for the future because sure as hell ain't Brandon Staley and their cap situation is a mess.
Brutal.
And Keenan Allen, he's a guy who you thought would never leave the Chargers. And now he's probably gonna have no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real, he's gonna have to get play.
It's going to get ugly for them in a couple of years. It's like how the Rams are going to feel it.
Yep.
Chargers are going to be right around the corner.
So kind of moving on from the Bears here. It's only the end of February and quarterback carousel is spinning and spinning faster than it has in a while. And that's including last offseason. I mean, there's a whole lot of weird shit going on, right? I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers doing a darkness retreat for 4 days, saying that he's going to find himself and know what he wants to do. Okay, sure. It's a nice way of saying you're doing more shrooms. And then you have Derek Carr, who fucked over the Raiders, by the way, which I love. I think it's such a funny move from him.
Absolutely. I love petty shit.
Like, it was the pettiest thing I've ever seen in the NFL almost, where it's just like, hey, we'll trade you. He's like, no, I'm not going to waive my no trade clause. And he's going to visits while he's still under contract with the Raiders with these teams. I don't know if you saw it from when he was the alternate for the Pro Bowl. There's someone asked him along the lines of like, how does it feel to be representing the Raiders here or something like that? He goes, I don't know. It feels pretty good, but I'm sure the fans in the front office aren't too happy or something. That was the first time I was like, all right, Derek Carr, I see what we're working with here. But I mean, I want to get into him first and foremost before we kind of jump into anyone else, because he seems to be the name with the most smoke around it right now. And took a visit with the Saints, didn't seem to go that well. And he takes a visit with the Jets, and the Jets are reportedly telling him, you come here, we can make you a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Listen, they're not wrong. And I'm going to tell you why.
I know the reasoning you have, I think.
I want people that are young, still getting in football, still trying to learn all the greats and the legends, or people who consider them greats and legends, and this particular person, go look up Joe Namath's stats.
Yeah, I knew that's where we were
going.
Go
look up his stats. And the only reason, The only reason why he's a Hall of Famer is because he guaranteed a Super Bowl win. He is the guy for the New York Jets. That's how their quarterback situation has gone. Yeah, you had Vinny Testaverde. He was pretty damn good. You had Chad Pennington. He was pretty damn good. Brett Favre choked at the end. I just want to throw a shot at him. But they're not wrong. You win a Super Bowl with the Jets, or you get close to a Super Bowl. Guess what? You're in New York / New Jersey, oh Lord, forever.
Yeah,
it's just the facts. And the fact of the matter is this: it's a little tricky for him, because I love the analogy that Robert Griffin III made, which is crazy because he's a little wonky. But he said the Jets are playing with their two girlfriends right now. You brought one into town. You like the way they vibe. But you're still waiting for your first option to come around so they can actually give you attention. And the fact of the matter is this: he is probably the best fit for the Jets, but I don't know. I don't know what's their ceiling with him. I really don't. And he's a good quarterback, but I just don't know how far they can go with him. I don't know. Like, it's not a reflection of the weapons. The offensive line still needs some work. They got, they're a ready-made team to make a playoff run. I just don't know if he's the guy to maximize that.
Yeah, there's two names on the market who could easily be better options for them right now, right? I mean, there's Aaron Rodgers if he decides to play again. I mean, say what you want about Rodgers, he's as talented of a quarterback who still plays in the league, and it's Aaron Rodgers, man. I mean, what else is there to say other than that? And then one that I think is still a real possibility. You know exactly who I'm going to say. Lamar Jackson, man.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson. The fact that it still seems like the Ravens don't want to pay him, just make it make sense.
Listen, if you want to talk about a guy that is a little bit injury prone and you don't know how his game is going to age as he gets older, I somewhat understand it. But where are you going to get another Lamar Jackson? Let me know. Because you're not going to. You're not going to. I don't give a damn who you target and draft. You're not getting another Lamar Jackson. So if you want to continue to contend in the AFC North, which, by the way, it's not the most competitive. It's a very competitive division, but it can also still be one. You're still one of the best teams in that division. You're probably the second best.
Yeah.
So if you want a chance to continue to contend, it's all there. The defense was so damn good last year, and you're just thinking, man, if Lamar Jackson played against Cincinnati, I think Baltimore wins. I don't think the only team that could probably beat Baltimore with a Lamar at 100% was only Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, that team was pretty damn good last season. And by the way, Baltimore could draft their ass off, okay? Every year, you just like, damn, these guys get talent. These guys get, wide receivers always this position they just like kind of ignore.
Aside from receiver, yeah.
But I do think with how this regime has changed up, Tom Monken is the new offensive coordinator. I do think that if Lamar Jackson goes back, that team is freaking dangerous. Like, that was your Super Bowl team going into last season. I think you could run it back if Lamar Jackson's the quarterback.
I agree. I agree, man. And it's just wild to me that there's even a quarterback of his caliber, the potential to just walk away for nothing. I mean, he's the type of franchise quarterback that you like dream for your entire fandom.
Yeah.
And it's just, if I was a Ravens fan, I would be so incredibly irritated right now.
Yeah.
Because, obviously the Ravens aren't that old of a franchise, but like, you've won Super Bowls with Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco as your quarterbacks, right? Lamar is the most talented quarterback to ever wear a uniform for that franchise.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like they, one, want to support him, and two, there's some type of disconnect there that we don't know about, because I still am of the opinion I think he probably could have played again this year. And I don't want to make that call about something I have no knowledge of, but I feel like all signs were pointing towards Lamar wanting to play and the Ravens not wanting him to.
What the Ravens haven't been around for a very long time. But here's what I do know about the Ravens. Consistently, defense has been their thing. Consistently, like shockingly consistently. You went to Trent Dilfer, you went to Elvis Gerbach, you went to Kyle Bowler, you went to Anthony Wright, you went to Steve McNair in his last days.
Yeah.
What is the problem that y'all can't get? Y'all know you have a franchise quarterback, but you do not want to do anything with said franchise quarterback. This is a pretty sickening trend. And listen, I get it. If defense is your MO, that's totally fine. At the end of the day, it still does win championships. I don't give a damn what anybody says. Yeah, you have to score the football, but defensively, you put your offense in good positions. So I don't know how this is going to end, but all I do know is this. Let the Ravens tag Lamar Jackson. And if they think he's going to walk on that field on a franchise tag, they might be one of the dumbest organizations in football.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even seem like Lamar's demanding record-breaking money either.
Right. And
then again, we tossed around the insinuation earlier in the show that Daniel Jones is looking for $45 million from the Giants, which is just
bonkers,
laughable. And he'll probably get somewhat close to that just because of what the quarterback market is.
Yep.
So if Daniel Jones wants $45 million, and we'll be getting $45 million most likely, or in that ballpark, the Ravens just have to be kicking themselves for not giving Lamar that extension. What was it, a year or two ago, with that same number right around per year? He's going to probably be up there $55-60 million a year.
Yeah. And here's the thing too. I feel like there's only one fit for Lamar. It's not in the Jets. I think the Atlanta Falcons have to be rated. They have to be. They have a good amount of cap space. I think they're in the top 5. They're probably like 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
That could change the entire franchise. And I'm telling you, Atlanta, how they got behind Michael Vick, they will love Lamar Jackson just as much. You would never have to worry about Lamar Jackson being underappreciated with Atlanta.
That's a destination I really hadn't thought about, but it makes sense. It'd be a very young and dynamic offense. I mean, throwing the football to Drake London, Ty Algier. I mean, the quietest 1,000 yards.
He was really good. No one talked about him.
Wow, that's an option I hadn't thought about at all. I mean, I thought a team that popped into my head before Atlanta even was the Bucs. Popped into my head before that. I don't know what's going to happen at quarterback for the Bucs. I think Derek Carr makes a lot of sense for the Buccaneers.
Yeah,
but I don't know what they're going to do. Because it's been awfully quiet out of Tampa Bay since Tom Brady's retired.
To be honest, I genuinely believe we're going to see a quarterback competition in Tampa between Kyle Trask and wait for this.
Mitch Trubisky?
No.
Blaine Gabbert?
Carson Wentz. He's not done yet. He's not done yet. He's not done yet. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I think he's done, but in terms of getting opportunities to start, I don't think he's done yet. And that would be genuinely hilarious.
Wow. I'm not often speechless, but I'm speechless right now. Carson Wentz taking over for Tom Brady. Wow. God, I mean,
it's as ugly.
I don't know where else he would go. I mean, who else would want him? Or no?
Nobody. No,
Wow.
but literally nobody. But
Wow.
if they know they're not in good standing in the draft and whatnot, listen, Anthony Richardson can fall to them, but that's about it.
Yeah.
It gets ugly after that.
Or Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz takes over. I can't even. He takes over in Baltimore after Lamar leaves.
Oh man, Art Modell will raise from his grave and move the team out of Baltimore.
Oh God, this just turned into dump on Carson Wentz. And so, I mean, there's some other there's some intriguing things going on around the league right now too, a quarterback outside of these ones we talked about. Cowboys apparently shown interest in CJ Stroud. I mean, seems like
and Hendon Hooker too.
Yeah. I mean, it's so here's the thing. If they somehow trade up and take Stroud, right? Dak will not be a Dallas Cowboy next year.
Gone.
But if they take Hendon Hooker, Dak Prescott, he'll be a Dallas Cowboy until Hendon Hooker's knee is healthy and ready to go.
Which is interesting because let's just say, because there will be only three reasons why the Cowboys would drive Hendon Hooker. Number one, they want Dak out the door. Point blank.
Yeah.
Number two, they want to screw the Giants because the Giants are also talking to Hendon Hooker.
Uh-huh.
And number three, they think Cooper Rush might be ready to be a starting quarterback somewhere else. And it's funny because that's a name. When the season was very, very young, everybody was talking about like, man, I wonder what Cooper Rush could do on another team. And I think at the Philly game, which he didn't play terrible.
He didn't play bad, no.
But it was like, okay, we need Dak back. Like he's going to be like he's the guy.
I mean, Cooper Rush was like 30, I'm pretty sure too.
If he's 30, then damn, I did not know that.
I need to look this up now. Hold on, because I know he's a Central Michigan guy, and I feel like I remember watching him in the MAC like mid 2010s. Hold on,
he is 29.
Yep. Okay.
29. Is he a free agent or is? Oh, he is a free agent. Oh, I guess they don't need to trade him now. Okay, well that makes perfect sense then.
Yep.
I guess the Giants are going to spin the block just in case Daniel Jones they're not going to extend him. But
what realistically, I mean, you being a tri-state area guy, you have your finger on the pulse more than I do. What is the common consensus right now out there with both the Jets and the Giants, I guess, because those are the two teams that I feel like are being talked about more than any other team with their quarterback.
So I'm gonna touch on the Jets first. I have heard people say, yes, Aaron Rodgers or bust. Like he has to be the guy. And there are people which, by the way, I'm more of this other side, is that Aaron Rodgers is getting paid $50 million a year, and yet he's still unhappy with the Packers and still potentially want to leave somewhere else. He's going to be in his 40s, I believe, when the season starts next season.
He'll be 40.
So he's going to be 40. So we don't know how long he's going to play, how long he's going to be happy with the Jets, or if he's going to take the Jets to that next level. We don't know that. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think they are beat to play the whole game with him, especially in a New York media who is going to ask for the tough questions. And we know Aaron Rodgers to be pretty thin-skinned about anybody questioning him about anything. So I do think they very much want Aaron Rodgers. I think that's just like them wanting to win next year because they know they have a team to do so. But they also believe that Derek Carr could be a better option, a better long-term option. And even Jimmy G has snuck into the conversation only because what he was able to do with the talent that he has the talent on his Jets team as well. He can probably do some things. Now onto the Giants side. The general consensus, and I can put this number at 100%, that every Giant fan I've talked to that said that heard a report that Daniel Jones could command $45 million, they said, right? Hell no, absolutely not. Not in any circumstances. They they know what kind of quarterback Daniel Jones is, but I still think that curiosity creeps in of what could he be if he had weapons, because they made it to the playoffs and obviously they ran into a buzzsaw with Philadelphia. We don't know what kind of quarterback he is. We don't know if he's going to be the guy going forward. But what I do know is this: they don't want to strap themselves to $45 million for a guy who just learned how to play the quarterback position just last year.
Yep.
And I think it's completely legitimate. The only problem is, who's going to be the next option? Are you going to draft? Because you're not in a position to get one of the top guys. And also, you still have holes to fill on the roster too. And you still have Saquon Barkley lurking in the wings.
Mm-hmm.
You have to see if you're going to pay him or not. So if you don't have Barkley, you have to pay Jones. Jones is going to become very, very, very one-dimensional. You've got to replace a generational running back like Saquon. So Jets, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, maybe Jimmy G. Giants, know that David Jones $45 million, and
Jimmy G's a name I had, like, honestly, that just had escaped my mind, and he is the perfect New York quarterback. I mean,
oh yeah, they would love him.
I mean, like, he's the handsome Italian dude who would just, he'd be the new Joe Cool. Except he's probably a better quarterback than Joe Namath is or was.
His jersey sale's going to be top 10 if he's a Jet. I'm telling you that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh yeah, you're gonna have a lot of greasy gabagools buying those jerseys. Oh man. But all right, that's gonna wrap up this week's episode of the Goonery. We'll be back next week, hopefully, to discuss maybe a little bit more movement here, because you can only play hypothetical for so long. But if you made it this far, we appreciate you watching, listening, however you consume. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.